Good.
How's this Fox doing?
I don't know. Hanging in there.
I need to sign that.
I forgot my mask.
Okay. Sounds great.
It says here in Wikipedia that's still to be determined. So,
What's that?
because I believe everything I read in Wikipedia.
Yeah. What's that? I just gave it, I'll let you show everybody. Yeah. I'm good. I didn't
High
really,
school activities.
yeah, I didn't really put too much thought into it. I thought, I want to make sure everybody understands what I'm doing. There's no choices. Unless you want me to write somebody in or I'm not voting with these guys.
Marty does. He's our, he's on the,
Okay.
I wouldn't know.
Okay. I'll ask him if he comes tonight. Yeah, you bet. Okay.
Fun. You?
Is Michelle able to make it? Oh, there she is. She's getting a beverage.
I take my mask off. You get my glasses.
She said. Look in your email.
Hello, Michelle.
Hey, that's a good deal.
I never win anything.
There you go.
You want what?
I'm beaming.
She wants 2 Cokes.
Oh, I did Cokes.
I need to go to the water.
That's right. Better.
Bonus Coke, all right.
Exactly.
I'm about to hit it big and disappear.
Done. Very good. Okay. Board member, who was it? Oh. Got my gavel.
Got a big audience today.
Yeah. I call this order of USD 49 Board of Education to order for October 9th, no, March 8th, 2021.
October. Work.
Yes, at 6:30 PM. This is a work session. As I have mentioned before, during work session, our plan was to, for the academic year, was to hold our work sessions at different buildings around the district each month. But of course, due to the pandemic, we're not doing that, and we're meeting here. We have 6 of us in the room tonight. Board member Hurdle is not here. She's ill this evening, so we wish her the best. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. The agenda is posted on board docs, a link for which is on the USD 49 website. I move to accept the agenda as written. Do I have a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is any discussion about the agenda itself?
Yes, can we do an addition to the agenda?
What-
We had some discussion about board policy, and I don't know where would be a good time to, so we can have discussion about board policy on that.
I don't know, I think 6 might work, board discussion. We could add that. Is that okay with you?
Sure.
I have a couple things to say too, or one thing to say on that. Okay, so the agenda has been amended to include another item under board discussion. I think I'll just go for it. All in favor of the agenda with the modification, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, hearing none, motion passes 6-0 unless anybody's abstaining, and I forgot to ask. Okay, motion passes 6-0. Please vote electronically the same way when it's up there. All logged in? Yep, there it is. All right, very good. All righty, next item is the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes board meeting minutes from February 22nd, financials, personnel transactions, ECC Director's Report for February, and minutes from the Policy Council meeting, 2 Kansas Head Start grants, and approval of a bid for the Hayes High School parking lot concrete project. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I would like to pull out the parking lot, please. and
Okay.
Discuss that. I also have a correction of the minutes. Do we need to pull it out to do that?
Hang on a second. Well, no.
You don't have to.
You don't have to pull it out. Why don't we just, we're in discussion still, so if you want to correct the minutes.
Okay, we had
Suggest a correction.
a motion that didn't get a second, and according to board policy, all motions should be reflected in the minutes.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't have my notes with me from last meeting, but
Can you
do you
share for all of
recall?
us?
Do you recall what it was?
Sure, it was a motion to pull out the superintendent's contract from the other contracts because
Oh, right, right.
of the reasons that we're supposed to do this administrative central office in January, buildings in February, and so on. So they're always voted on separately.
Okay, yeah, I remember that a motion and it failed. We could add that to the minutes from last time. So we'll approve the consent agenda with that modification to the minutes from February 22nd.
And I guess I just would like to ask Bill, is that I'm not sure how minutes, I can't recall if you usually include failed motions in minutes?
Well, the only thing that's required in minutes is any motions that are, in any action that's taken. And it's kind of up to the board clerk as to how definitive she wants to get with the minutes. Sometimes with some municipalities, it's kind of a verbatim transcript of conversations and everything in place. Sometimes it's just a bare minimum of motions and seconds and votes. So
Okay,
historically, I think our minutes have reflected more than just motions and seconds and how the voting went. And
So there's
I
a
don't see
balance with
anything
this.
wrong with adding that to the minutes. I think it
sure.
probably correctly reflects discussions that were had.
If you look under minutes on our board policy, it specifically says
Okay,
in our policy that
Yep.
if there's a motion made, even though it's not a second, it is supposed to be reflected in the minutes. So
Okay.
all right, sounds good, yeah.
if you want me to find it, I can.
No, we don't, no, it's okay.
No, I
But you
was
want
just-
to move
And that
the,
wasn't something I was familiar with. Thank you, Alan. And I just wanted, that wasn't something that I had done in previous positions. So thank you for that clarification.
the other idea was to move the discussion of the parking lot down to discussion items that we want to do. Alan?
Whatever you think, sir.
Well, I don't really want to move it, but I will. Okay, let's move the parking lot discussion down to, actually, we discussed that last time, so, I don't know. Do you mind telling us why you want to move it?
Well, I understand
You
you're
don't have
not
to,
supposed to
yes.
discuss consent agenda items. And if you look at the consent agenda criteria, it's supposed to be items that are routine, and a $180,000 purchase should be discussed, I think, in front so the public can hear what we're talking about.
Okay.
I mean, it's not routine.
Well, I think legally, I think officially, we can actually have the whole meeting on the consent agenda if we wanted to, but no,
Yeah.
I understand. We can move it out and discuss it. We discussed it last meeting.
Well,
But-
and I would say, I guess, part of how I define that as part of the routine was that it's on a calendar. This is the last step in several investments with the parking lot, is why I guess that's where I would say it's, could balance with the routine or not. But, yeah.
Sure.
Pull it out, that's up to you, Mr. President.
We'll do it. I don't know. Yeah, we'll move it down to, Jess, can you move that one down to discussion item number 5? All right. Any more discussion about the consent agenda itself?
Only thing I had was I want to thank Donna Hudson Hamilton and the early childhood. There are 2 grants that are on the consent agenda. I appreciate her going and following up. It is a lot of work on the, I started reading it and then I started scanning it when it's 130-some pages long. But good luck to her on those 2 grants. They are both really good for kids and families.
I agree, 100%. I'd like to add in my notes to thank her as well.
And
It takes a team to put those together, but it was great to have her, as usual, pull a couple of big grants together for us.
Just to follow up on Craig's comments,
Yes.
these grants are, you'll see these every 3 years.
Yeah.
In complete form like this, multiple pages. And then the subsequent years, the next 2 years will just be kind of a condensed. But they do this every year, but the big version is required every 3 years.
Very good. So, yes, another couple things I want to add, and then I'll get to you, Ron. Is we have 3 retirements. I want to thank Janelle Bellman, John Lynn, and Beth Fisher for service to USD 49. They're all 3 retiring. And I want to welcome Catherine, Jared, Sergio, Marcy, Haley, Kaylor, Jessica, and Carly to USD 49. And we have 1 transfer, but I'll wait for Ron to explain that to us.
Well,
Announce it.
we're excited to be able to announce this evening that the next principal at O'Loughlin Elementary will be Renee Burns. Renee is a long time. She's taught there 14 years at O'Loughlin Elementary ever since she came to the profession. Very excited to have Renee. She brings lots of energy and enthusiasm. Just going to be a great fit for O'Loughlin. Staff that was on the interview committee is really excited to have her, and they're excited to share the news that Renee is going to be the next principal. So we welcome Renee
Fantastic.
to the administrative team, and glad that she's still with our district, so in a new capacity. So very excited.
Oh, yes, very good. Yep, I can't remember all 4 of my, I don't think all 4 of my kids had her, but I know at least 2 did, so that's good. Whatever. Yes, thank you, Ron. That's fantastic. Any other announcements, folks, while we're here? All righty, I'm going to call for a vote on the consent agenda with the modifications that were discussed. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? All righty, motion passes 6-0. Please vote electronically the same way. All righty, next item is our presentation section. Today we have, as I mentioned at the beginning, we had planned to go to each school. Well, we're asking the schools to come to us, so Wilson Elementary today. Anita,
Hey,
please take it away.
sure. I'll try to keep it short and brief, Ron said, just focus a little bit on the data that you shared with me. I was like, ooh, that's dangerous, because you know how much I like data. So, I tried to condense it for you. But I always like to start with just who we are. And, oops, I messed it up, didn't I? We went through a process about 4 years ago as we started the foundations process of revisiting our mission statement. And it was interesting, you know, and after you've been in education long enough, the pendulum swings back to, we had social emotional learning when I first started at the middle school 20-something years ago. And we're back to social emotional learning again. And we recognize the importance of it after we really probably over-focused on academic testing. So we're back to the whole child. And we felt like it was important to also talk about, we want to grow them as learners and as leaders. So, and we want them to excel in all of those areas, not just one. And as you know, we've been working through KESA and Wilson's 2 goals. As a district, we devoted our energy on relationships and relevance. And our goals were to increase the collaborative relationship between Wilson, our families, and our community. And so that really means within the building and then outside with the building outside of the building. And then also we want to improve our students' overall social and emotional well-being to support our mission statement. And the reason we chose that over an academic goal was because our data showed us that we really needed to help assist students in their behavior and social emotional success. So our action steps under relationships, this year we've had the ability to purchase Seesaw to communicate with parents, and I looked, remember I have data, 440 family visits this past week. So I feel like that's a success. We also use newsletters to communicate with parents via, our teachers do it via Seesaw weekly. I use the program SMORE to give parents a newsletter monthly. Yesterday, I emailed the newsletter. Today, so far, there were 243 visits. Last month's newsletter got 429 views. So it's kind of nice to see that people are reading that and hopefully would give them useful information. Parent-teacher conferences we felt like help build relationships. We do something special at Wilson with kindergarten. We start with a Smart Start with a week of kindergarten that is half days. And the other half of the day, the kindergarten teachers meet one-on-one with the Wilson families. And this year we were able to do that outside of the school day, but on school grounds. And we always feel like that really helps set us up for success with those families. It helps the parents get to know the teachers. It helps the teacher get to know the family and get to know what pertinent information they need to know about that student. And it's really worth the time. So this was our 3rd year to do that. Actually, and we had done it in the past, but not done the conferences with it. It also gives those kindergarten students a smoother transition into school, which can be a little bit jarring for them, especially if they're not used to a school setting of any kind. But in our fall parent-teacher conferences, we had 95.4% participation. So we really would like to also continue to add another spring conference because the purposes of spring conferences versus fall conferences are different. We've focused intentionally on notifying parents for positive behavior. If you follow our Facebook page, you'll see our WOW Wednesdays. We do positive phone calls home on Wednesdays, and those WOW slips are positive office referrals written by all teachers. And I love that our student teachers this year have really gotten into it. And then on Wednesdays, those get drawn for positive phone calls home. We are proud that Fort Hayes has partnered with us and given us all kinds of t-shirts to provide as prizes, which is kind of a secondary benefit because then we're promoting secondary education for our students. And WOW stands for Way of the Warrior, which since we are the Wilson Warriors, and our Way of the Warrior is that being kind and control, respectful and responsible, which we use as our mantra every day. We also have incentives like on Hundreds Day, the week that Hundreds Day falls. Not only do the kids get to do fun things for that, but I had a special incentive for the teachers, and we had a hundreds chart, and once we got to 100 positive parent contacts, then we do a drawing, and whatever numbers are drawn, the teachers got prizes. So there were Starbucks gift cards, because teachers like to work for prizes too. So, and that's another, just an intentional way to keep increasing that positive parent contact. And the other action step that is in our plan was the community service piece, which we have had to get creative about due to COVID, but I know some of our classrooms have partnered remotely. We have a classroom that always partners, several classrooms that always partner with the local nursing homes, and so they've had to create more of a pen pal type relationship this year, but we plan to go back to that when we can. But we've been intentional about every grade level has some type of community service project. And then the relevance piece, focusing on a growth mindset and helping teach students resilience. That positive behavior interventions and support, you're probably going to hear that a lot, and that's our setting students up for success by focusing on what we want, not what we don't want, and helping make the expectations very clear for them. And that includes that CHAMPS. If you've heard of CHAMPS, it's the classroom framework for making expectations clear and explicit. And at Wilson, we've made a commitment to trauma responsive practices, which again, looks a little bit different this year. We haven't had calm corners in classrooms, but we have like calm kits. We've done Mindful Mondays to help internalize those strategies for students. And then, as you know, we adopted and have implemented second step as the social emotional curriculum across the district. We are 1 year ahead of that because we piloted it for 1 year, which I'm excited to share that data. Here's our Wow Wednesdays. This year, we have an enrollment of 374, which is down a little bit thanks to COVID. We were over 400 for the year before. We only have 7 remaining remote learners. Current COVID numbers, we have only 2 who are quarantined, and that was outside of school exposure. And we have only had to quarantine 1 classroom in a modified quarantine, and that was back in October. So we are excited about that. We have remained on site the entire time. Attendance, which next year's attendance will have a big asterisk beside it, but
Yes.
our attendance for the past 2 years has remained really steady. And again, that's the average percent of students who are at school every day, which tells part of the story, and you see we're above the district average and above the state. But then the other piece of the picture is that chronic absenteeism, and this is what percent of your total population misses more than at 10% or more of school days. So in a typical school year, what percent of your students miss about 17 to 18 days? And it's remained pretty steady. It's at 6.92% for last year, which is up a little bit from the year before. That represents 29 students. Kansas reports it as an average for K-12 instead of just K-5, but their K-5 average is a little over 10%, so we're still under the state average. What we do with those 29 students is then cross-reference that list to our office discipline referrals to see if we already have an intentional plan for the student, but make sure that we have a plan. It might be an attendance contract. It might be that we need to help arrange transportation. It might be that we need to provide some type of incentive for attendance. As you know, attendance at elementary is typically not always on the student. Sometimes it's recommending mental health services and helping get that set up if the student's experiencing some anxiety. But with those 29 students who flag as chronically absent, we want to make sure that we have an intentional plan. This is probably the most exciting. This is what I shared with Ron and Shanna, I know. This is office disciplinary referrals, and there was a whole lot that went into reducing the number of this. It included all those things that we talked about. It also included a whole lot of work on teachers' part to define what exactly it should be a referral and what shouldn't be a referral. And we picked our top 10 strategies for dealing with things that we could manage in the classroom that are tried and true practices that work. And teachers did all of that work. We spent a lot of time, and as you can see then, from 2018-19, that was 265 office referrals. It dropped, and I stopped, I went back and pulled just up to March 13th, which would have been when we closed school in 2019-20. So we're comparing the same amount of time. So for 2019-20, before we had to shut down, we only had 88 office referrals, which is a 66% reduction. And then this year, which we're almost to March 13th again, I'm going to hold my breath on that day, we're down another 34% because we've only had 50 office referrals this year. So, and I will tell that is a direct result of a whole lot of hard work on our teachers' part and a willingness to try to preserve that, to build relationships with students and preserve relationships with students by helping them figure out what's going on and problem solve to make it better and treat behavior as something that we can teach just like we do academics. So kudos to our teachers because that's powerful and that's a huge drop. And in 2 years.
Is this, excuse me,
Wow.
Yes.
do you think this is directly correlated to your social emotional learning?
I think that's a part of it, yes. I think
know
it's the
there's a lot
social
of
emotional
research
learning.
that speaks
It's
to
the
that.
part.
Yeah.
Second step is very highly researched, yes. Yeah. And the good news is we started implementing some of those trauma responsive practices even the year before, and some of the positive behavior intervention and supports. So I feel like we're now reaping the benefits of students who've had that approach for almost all of their elementary time.
And that's the second level you mentioned?
That's foundational as
Oh,
well.
wow.
Right. So something else that we've done at Wilson, all of my years there, is also give a social emotional screener, which if you've heard some of what we've been talking about with MTSS across the district, we're implementing a screener district-wide. But we have given one since I started. Mrs. O'Connor and I worked on that to make that happen. And basically, it's just a teacher report of any behaviors that flag or students that we need to be concerned about. So this is in the fall. So this kind of would have been a pre-screener before we implemented any intervention, but it's also for returning students a measure of how are they still applying past skills that we've taught as far as social emotional skills. And if you see, we have 82% of our students are in Tier 3, 12% were in Tier 2, and 6% were in considered what is Tier 3 on this particular screener. And the ideal is you want at least 80% in your Tier 1, which means your baseline, what you're doing for all students is working, and you want no more than 15% in Tier 2 and no more than 5% in Tier 3, which our Tier 3 is a little high, but again, this was in the fall. We will screen again in the spring using the new screener that we're implementing across the district. But then we dive into those grades and those classes and then implement other interventions. And this year, because of COVID, our counselor's been creative and gone into specific classrooms to provide Tier 2 interventions, which is more social emotional lessons and teaching specific strategies for classrooms that may be struggling. We have one class that really has a hard time getting along with each other. They nitpick on each other, and kind of tear each other down. And so she's done some things to help them just recognize how harmful that is and build empathy. So that's a Tier 2 intervention. We teach students how to self-monitor some of those behaviors. And then in Tier 3, we do things like check in and check out with students daily or send daily home notes, or sometimes it's a behavior contract that they're a part of creating so that they have incentive to change the behavior. Questions on any of that? Anything you want to add there? But again, it's that being intentional for the students who are struggling to make sure we have a plan for all of them and a support system so they don't fall through. We have had to pause a few things thanks to COVID this year. We were so excited. We had tribes that was across grades, and they met once a week, and we did some of our community service projects through our tribes, and we had to suspend tribes because of COVID, because we wanted to keep our cohorts specific to grade level and class. We've not been able to do some of our assemblies where we introduce some of our social emotional skills and positive behavior incentives. We've not had concerts. We've not been able to share like hands-on manipulatives among students. Cooperative seating hasn't occurred, but teachers have been really creative about still continuing to do cooperative learning and using technology to help in that. We haven't been able to invite parents into school, but I feel like some of the technology supports that we have in place, like Seesaw, have helped to involve parents in a different way. And certainly it's not the same. We miss having parents in school to volunteer and observe and eat lunch and just be a part. That's probably been the hardest part about this year for me, is not being able to involve parents and see parents and interact with parents in the way that we have. I'll go to this. I'm going to skip this slide for just a second. Even though we haven't had visitors in our building, we have had a couple of special visitors this year. On the left is the bat that came to visit in the library the other day. And because he was alive in the trash can, so they don't have lift, so they have to drop from something. So at least he was harmless. He couldn't fly around. And we were able to get him removed about 10 minutes before class started. So that was positive. And last fall, on the right, you can see, one morning, the kids came in to report, there's a mouse in the little theater. Well, it was a shrew. So we had to rehome the shrew.
All right.
Oh, and when I say we, I mean Mrs. V and I. But, so We have had other visitors, just not parents like we would like. And then the other thing that I would feel remiss if I didn't mention about Wilson, and I know that you guys know this, but I feel like it doesn't hurt to tell you again. We do have site issues at Wilson. The original part of the building was built in 1959. As you know, there is a plan to construct this safe and secure entrance in the front that gives us a little bit more space, but really it's only providing less than 1,000 square feet. Our HVAC system is struggling, especially the original part that is the boiler from 1959. Right before the cold snap, all three of our heating systems failed. So the boiler required a new pump. The heating system on top of the library, which I believe was the original from 1980, I'll get this wrong, 85 maybe, and couldn't be fixed, so we had to put in a new heating unit. And then a seal went out and another pump in the boiler on the west end of the building, which is also in addition. So all three of those were failed at almost the same time. And thankfully, all were fixed before the very cold weather hit, but it was concerning. And then I included a picture there when one of the pipes broke in the wall. That was the flooding that occurred. Thankfully, Mrs. Carlene was there that day and said, hey, there's something going on, or it would have gone all night. It was about 6 o'clock that evening, and we were both still there. And the benefit of that, what happened because of it that was positive, is we now have an external shutoff that's outside instead of before the shutoff was down in the tunnels, which is not handy when you're trying to turn all the water off. So we still have in the original part of the building the original lights, and I know there's kind of a plan. We have little spots of LED lighting that's been replaced, but that would be nice if we could have more. The original lights are aging and oil drops out of those. Our windows, and I know they're on the capital outlay projected, like the long-term plan is to replace the windows, because once you can either not open them, or when you get them open, you can't get them closed. But our biggest issue is really that we don't have adequate space to do what we would like to do instructionally, because most of our classrooms, other than the K1 edition, are 600 to 700 square feet. So, and that has been, a COVID year when you're supposed to social distance, it's made it very apparent that we are short on space. So we do appreciate that. Our home and school purchased HEPA air filtration for all of our classrooms, and they are running all the time, and that I know has helped us, I think. So anyway, that's Wilson in a nutshell for this year. So questions that you guys have, or anything else you want to know that I can answer for you?
I have one.
Sure.
And I wish I would have thought to ask this of some of the other presentations, but where will your kiddos go when there's weather or tornado?
Right.
What is your...
Yeah, that's another site issue that we have. We don't really have a great tornado shelter.
Still in the hallway?
It's in the
underneath
hallways under the skylights, right.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So I posted a picture of that the other day when we practiced for the statewide tornado drill on March 2nd. But we are in the halls. We just made sure that when we were packed in pretty tight, it lasted about 3 minutes and kids were back in classrooms. So we made it short so that we didn't have extended contact. But yeah, we're in the halls.
Nita, not really a question, just an observation. I am so impressed by your staff that I see on the outside of the building. I haven't been on the inside of your building this year, but it's unbelievable. I see Randy and Frank out directing traffic to keep kids safe before school, after school. I see Mrs. Clark walking kids to the buses every afternoon. I see Mrs. Loving outside with the kids every day with that. So I just want to commend your staff of all the extras that they do.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of extras this year because our building is small. If it's cold, we go straight to classrooms. So school starts at 7:26 when kids arrive, when the doors are unlocked. So,
Out on a walk and talk in the mornings when it's not that nice, and
right.
They do a good job.
Yeah, there may be some benefits to trying different things out because of COVID. Like I know we've talked, I think teachers kind of like the way walk and talk is organized by grade level. That may end up staying.
Okay.
Where our foundations team will meet this summer, but
Anita, On your COVID pauses, what plan, I mean, with like the high school and their activities, and they're able to, open up a little bit more and have parents in the building, and I noticed that field trips isn't on here, but I'm sure that's one of the
It
pauses.
was, yeah.
Is there going to be a possibility of some of those things to our inch back being this
Right.
last 9
We
weeks?
talked to elementary admin. We plan to allow in-town field trips for the spring. And we'll have to talk to Russ to see, as long as we can kind of cohort by bus. But I know, the parents, I don't know. We haven't had a chance to talk as foundations. I would feel like as the numbers have dropped, I know we won't be able to lose the mask mandate, but my hope would be we can loosen some of those before the end of this school year, instead of just pivoting next school year. It's a good
And I have a question about your site council. How long and how often do they meet?
We meet right now 3 times a year. We've started with quarterly. It's hard to get people to come. I think Zoom has helped with that, like people find it more accessible via Zoom. So, yeah, we do once in the first quarter, once about January, and then once toward the end of the year. So we get beginning, middle, and end of the year.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Very good. Any other questions or comments, folks? Well,
Thank you.
thank you very much. It was a great
Thank you.
presentation. Appreciate it. Oh, one little minor note. I noticed that I can only see 2 of those colors on that pie chart, so. Just me, but maybe somebody else in the same boat. All right, admitting my weaknesses here. All right, we have district communication. First, we're going to hear from Superintendent Ron Wilson, and then going to get a finance update from Chris Hipp, Assistant Superintendent. So,
Okay, run through these hopefully quick. I would like to give a special shout out. Last Wednesday, we vaccinated over 200 staff members at USD 49, which was an incredible feat. We had previously done smaller groups, but this was the largest group. This was made possible. I'll mention their names. They're actually not from Hayes, but it's really cool that they made the effort to include us and help us with this endeavor. Chase and Abby Rice with Moffett Drug in Norton, and Kylie Shea, with Paradise Roots Pharmacy in Hill City. They actually provided a lot of vaccines. Of course, at that time, now it has changed. Ellis County, Jason Kennedy's been awesome to work with. He has truly supported teachers and getting vaccines. He just wasn't getting enough vaccines to help us.
Right.
And he was really open to allowing these pharmacies from Norton and Hill City to come down, very open to it. And so we were able to get it a week in advance. Now, I think Jason has finally got his vaccine shipment arriving, but that's still going to help out our whole community because we're just a week ahead. So we'll finish up, I believe, this week with most staff. Would like to recognize Chris Hipp, Jessica Rowe, and our school nurses. They put in a tremendous amount of work organizing this event. So they were above and beyond. So just a lot of great effort by a lot of great people in really getting us rounding the corner, looking towards the finish line. So by no means are we there yet, but I think it was a big uplifter and a great event. So just really appreciative of that. Also last week we had kindergarten roundup. We held it at Hayes High. It was a little different format this year. Of course, we're a little more spread out. Projections right now look like we will have what we would call a normal size class in Hayes of about 220, 225, could possibly even go up to 230. Last year, of course, if you remember, last year's class was really large. We were already at 50 in this year's kindergarten class, but still, by all means, a really large class. Our senior class is about the similar size, so it'll just be kind of trading class sizes. So we will be looking at our intent is still to, as you remember last year, we added the kindergarten teachers because we're really trying to keep that ratio of teacher to student under 18. We still hope that is our goal. And so we'll be making some projections based upon, it's so difficult though because these are still projections and we really don't know right up until the start of school almost exactly how many we'll have. But we for sure know we're going to have about 225, for sure, and then we'll see from there.
Ron,
Yes.
did you say you're going to add another kindergarten or another first grade teacher?
I didn't say either.
Oh, you're not. We just did. So what's the, I mean, we don't need one for our first
We're
grade?
in conversation that we're going to look at numbers for kindergarten coming in, and our goal is to keep that under 18. Of course, we had more kindergarten teachers. I think we also understand with COVID, there was not a lot of preparation. Maybe some kids who didn't get some preschool time. So kids coming in might be a little delayed, possibly. So having smaller class size is an option. We're just going to continue to look at numbers. As far as that large class going into first grade, we'll just have to make, we've talked about possibly trying to support those first grade teachers because they will see an increase, a fairly large class, and we've got to support them somehow. But we haven't really we just are still working with lots of projections and numbers and trying to make decisions. We've had tons of conversations about that. Perception survey that we talked about, I believe, last meeting, the telephone survey. You will probably could start hearing about a couple weeks that will be in our community. We have finalized the questions. They will be doing their work preparing, and probably, I think, within 2 weeks, they will be making those phone calls. We will be having an online, like we talked about, that will be available on our website. We'll do some social media to try and promote that. Once again, just like I mentioned, it really doesn't give us the statistical significance, which we can say for sure about some of, but we will have that from the report from the telephone survey. So, and then you will be seeing that once that's complete. I did want to talk about House Bill 2119. I mentioned that last meeting. I just kind of want to take a moment to talk a little bit about this bill. House Bill 2119 originally was just a bill that was kind of slated that was going to allow parents to possibly move their kids from a public school to a private school and take their base per pupil payments that we get for those kids for tuition at a private school. This was first started in an education committee. It has moved out of committee, which is always kind of surprising that a bill like this could get out of committee. Interesting though, now and these are little legislative tricks, they have rolled several different items into this bill. And some pretty key things that they have rolled into it, and it's a strategy. We put some popular things in it that people feel are important and should vote for, and hopefully our bill will then slide in. So I think it's important that we note this and make people aware that these kind of tricks are going on at the legislative level. Some of the things that are including, it's our funding that we get from the Department of Ed, which is our aid for our school. They're including that in the bill, as well as the state mill rate levy, which is done every 2 years, and that's the 20 mills extension that we just normally receive. That is rolled into House Bill 2119, along with the moving of public school funds to a private school if a parent chooses to do so, and if their child meets the criteria. So, I think the thing is, we have, as a district, notified our legislators and made them aware that this is a bill we are definitely opposed to. It hurts public education. public schools do not get to play by the same rules that private schools get to. And those funds that were designated by the legislature were designated for public school education, not private school. And so just wanted to make the board aware that this is really, it's kind of interesting how this has, I never would have thought it would have had enough support to even get out of committee. And we're now out of committee and they've rolled some things into the bill. Still doesn't mean it's going to pass, but it will be voted on, I believe, sometime this week. So just wanted to, if you do have, once again, any contact or the ability to contact, I think it's important that we do so. Last meeting we talked about the 2-year contracts, administrative contracts. We've reached out to several districts. We reached out to 8 school districts, all 5A or 6A districts. Many of them are league schools, and some that were outside of our league, but we're still 5A districts. 8 of the 8 districts, there were 3 that offered 2-year contracts right off the bat. There were 3 that offered 2-year contracts to administrators at the start of the 3rd year. So meaning you had a 1 year the first year, another 1 year, and then the 3rd year you got so there were 3 that did that, 3 that offered it right away, and 2 just did 1 year administrative contracts of the 8 we contacted. So just wanted to share that information with you. We'll plan to probably bring that back next meeting for discussion.
Okay, sounds good.
So I believe that is all I have.
All right, any questions for Superintendent Wilson, anybody?
Yeah.
Ron, I don't know if this is the time, but I'd just like to congratulate a lot of our winter sports at the middle school, at the high school level, not just the ones that are going on to the state competition, but we had a lot of very successful athletic events. I know some of our, like we talked about, some of our concerts and stuff got caught in different areas, but boys basketball, tremendous out at Hayes High, undefeated going to the state basketball tournament starting tomorrow night here in Hayes. We had 3 state wrestlers from Hayes High go through. I know the middle school had a lot of very successful seasons at the middle school. And I wanted, if I can take just a second, I still have a few middle school connections, and they did their Citizenship Day this last Friday, and with all the discussion of how important it is to teach civics and citizenship in the schools across the nation, I feel like the Hayes Middle School has been on top of this for years. They had 175 students go through Citizenship Day. They had a test that they took on the citizenship test. They had speakers that came in and talked about community service, civics, all the things to make, and then the final test is based off the naturalization and citizenship test. So I want to commend the 7th grade, Mr. Albers, Mrs. Weifel, everybody that really goes in on it. This is a very good project.
Yeah, and the neatest thing about that event, Craig, and I happen to be a participant in that, was just the kids, and it was an hour long, but I was just so impressed how engaged they were in the activities, and the military veterans who did a flag presentation, and I was just really amazing. Just very, very good citizenship. So we can all be proud. I truly was hoping that our public really could see, because sometimes our kids do. You don't always get the best reputation going, but they definitely represented themselves well that day.
For sure. Yeah. Very good.
That's all I have.
All right. Very good. Thanks for doing that. Guess we'll hear from Chris now.
Let you know the KSD audit. So last month we had our local audit, the single audit. This is the KSD audit that's going on right now, and that's where they'll actually come and count and recount all of the kids and all the different weightings and things like that. So the importance of that is, once we get done with KSD audit, we'll have our actual, what we call our legal max. So any adjustments that happen within the budget then happen based on that legal max in the audit. As you know, when we publish budget, we publish basically the top side of it, what we think would be the top side, and then through the audit, there's always some adjustment. Right now, the reason I start with that is, as we posted some of our year-to-date expenditures, we're floating about right where we want to be, and now as KSD audit gets done and we get our legal max, then we start making the adjustments for the year-end, basically, expenditures that we're coming out, our year-end spending plan that we're coming up on. So, but we're sitting in good shape with audit going on right now, and poised well to be able to end the year with that additional information that we'll have pretty soon. One thing that is on the horizon, you've probably been hearing about gas bills out there. Right now, we're in kind of a holding pattern, waiting on, it'll be next month's gas bill for us. But in talking to some other districts that were, their cycle, gas bill cycle just fell out a little bit different, we're hearing big numbers out of different districts, to the tune sometimes of up to like 12 times more. Just for some perspective, last year we spent about 90,000, or about 80,000, sorry, on gas for the year. Our February bill is usually around 12,000, 13,000, somewhere in there. Our March bill, which would include, in this case, that cold snap, is usually about 20,000. You take 12 times that, I hope we don't see that. But that is why we have things like contingency reserve. If that happens, we'll have a way to take care of that. I don't know what our number will be. We won't know. Basically, the gas companies had to say, we can't tell you yet. We'll get to you pretty soon. But so we may have a rather large unexpected expenditure there. We'll know more in a month. The other thing that we've got really, I guess, going on, I wanted to give a little bit of an update. We are, what I would say, knee-deep now in design and build of our new systems going forward, so our Skyward platform going forward. The amount of work that the department is putting in creating those. When I came down to meeting, Amy and Bonita were still working on pay codes and different things like that. And the work going in right now, everybody is seeing, it's a ton of work going in right now, but the things that we're able to clean up and streamline and I think modernize we're seeing that, boy, it's going to pay off. We're not to the end of the tunnel yet, but it is going to pay off big for us as we go. We're starting to have a good enough picture now that we'll start releasing some training to staff as early as later this week also on like what the new timekeeping systems will start to look like and new pay periods or how the pay periods and everything, how that will all work going forward too. So,
Just your time frame, what are you anticipating being completed with all?
So we'll go live July 1. So like starting July 1, we'll start taking time card and start paying bills and start doing payroll with the new system. We won't be done with the conversion at that point. We will have done a few like demo or trial payrolls as we've gotten up to that and built all of our accounting system. And then after July 1, really so the last push coming up to July 1 is get ready to be able to track time and make first payroll. And then after that's done, then we'll spend the next couple of months importing some of the history data so that when December comes, we can run W-2s and things like that. But as of July 1, all the checks, paychecks included, will be in new system.
Are you duplicating processes on both systems, or is it?
Right now, we're not there yet because we're building new system as we go. So there's a whole lot of cross-reference and then updating and kind of cleaning up old system for the final imports. There'll be about 30 days in there where we do have some duplicate, like staff changeover. So if we have a termination, an exit, and somebody entering, we'll end up tracking them in both systems because that part will be live already. But right now, it's not duplicate work. It's just a whole lot of design work. So, but it's good stuff. We're able to really think through some processes, and I think it'll
That's
So
awesome.
Chris, are we running 2 programs simultaneously?
No, not right now.
And we
Right
have to
now,
pay-
we're just building, yeah, we're building new one. We still live in Oleo, and we'll still live in Oleo, and checks and everything will come out of that through the end of June, but there will be that little window there right before the end where we have some duplicate process.
I guess my question is, we had to purchase one, and then we still have to support the one we have, so we're paying for 2 systems.
Well, the old system is an annual contract. That doesn't, that contract is supported through October, which gives us time to get new system up and running. So right now, we've just, we're paying for the database at this point, and then a
The new
program
one?
portion this year. Yeah, the hosting, which was, $7,000, something like that. The hosting to start to build the database, and then we'll have some prorated expense for utilization, and then go live July 1.
Very good.
I also have a question about our substitute line. How's that doing with all the,
So as of late, since Christmas, it hasn't been bad. You know, when we talked in November, December, we were well over what we would anticipate. But over the last few months, it's really kind of leveled out. And we've been able to go back and account for as many as possible of the actual COVID substitutes. So if it was for COVID leaves, we're able to tie that back to some of the ESSER money and help. So it hasn't put as much pressure on our general fund as it would without the federal funds. But it really has leveled out. We've been in pretty good shape since Christmas, otherwise. Pretty normal shape, I guess I would say.
do you see any surprises with the KSD audit? As far
No, I think as with the KSD audit every year, we put in estimates, we always shoot it to the top side, so there's always some correction down. This year, we'll wait and see what our at-risk numbers actually come in. There's some anticipation that are at risk. We were expecting them to be pretty significantly higher, and so we were budgeting there. I don't think they'll be quite as high as what we thought, but that really just affects our weighting in year. It doesn't affect our overall general fund going down the road, because you're always looking at last year previous of your FTE. So.
Thank you.
Very good. Anything else? I think there's not. Okay,
Thanks,
Chris,
Chris.
thank you very much. That was a great presentation.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to discussion items. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think, we're going to discuss tonight. So first, we'll start with the local bids policy update. Ron, do you want to explain what we're doing here?
Yeah, it's in your board packet,
Yeah, I know.
it's all described there. Low bid, it comes to us from Brian's Concrete, who is here in Hayes. Brian has completed 90% of the projects, and this is on the west side of Hayes High. Brian has done a great job of working with the district and completing this project. Last year, commercial builders won the bid. This year, the low bid comes to us from Brian's Concrete for $185,625, which you can see is significantly lower than the second place. So that's pretty much it. We're excited to have the west side completed, and we will look to work on the east side next year.
Yeah, that looked like on paper, that's a very good bid.
Yes.
From the one vendor here in town.
Yes.
They all 4 were local vendors, but that lowest bid was a very good bid this year.
And I like not only low, but we've got history. We've got some testimonial to their work. And this would be the last of
Of the
what
west
is
side.
needed to be done for the Hayes High parking lot.
Other than the stone
No,
size.
except for the,
Yeah,
okay.
driveways.
There's 3 years work on the faculty side then too.
okay.
Were those the only 4 people that vote, that obviously they're the only 4 that had the bids, that submitted bids?
Yes.
What is our process to get the bids out to all vendors? Do we send it out to everybody, or is it just in our website, or do we send them out to specific people?
Well, I think we let people know locally, yeah.
I talked to 2 vendors today, and they said they have a hard time getting to know what the the bids are, and they don't have an opportunity to bid.
Concrete vendors,
Yes, sir.
local.
Yes. And so I did visit with the city. They have a great process where they can, it's all done automatically, and they can go in and they can submit and they get a text and an automatic email that comes out so that we don't miss anybody. And that's a problem that we need to try to work on to ensure everybody has an opportunity to do
Well, I
these
don't think
bids.
it's affected a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know about this. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but you know what? This is not behind the scenes action, and I resent the fact that the suggestion that we're not being transparent. I mean, we had discussed this, the project for the parking lot's been going on for quite a number of years now.
Right.
We've heard from Marty quite often about how well it's going. It's no mystery that we were having concrete work done, so.
Yeah, we got plenty of bids. I'm not really concerned. I think anyone who is interested, they can definitely, they know, and we've stated tonight, we're definitely working on the east side. Coming years, they just need to understand that that work will be available.
So my question was, have they been in? And they said they have in the past, so could you
I'm
tell them to keep
available-
coming?
I'm available in my office. If they're interested, they should probably come see me.
Okay, that's good to know. I'll pass that information on.
Appreciate that.
So
Can
we
I
need,
move to make a motion that we accept this bid, or are we to that point?
nope.
We
go
we
ahead.
should have probably done that before our discussion, but.
Yeah, probably. Please make a motion. Do you want to move to accept the bid?
Yes, the low bid from Brian's Concrete.
Yep, as
Well, I
presented.
have one more question.
Nope,
I'll-
stop. We're going to
hold on.
second, and then we're going to have
Okay,
discussion.
okay. Sure.
So we have a second. Thank you very much. Now we're into discussion.
Okay, what is this whole project costing? I know we had 70,000, and then we had 80,000, and last year had 130,000, now it's 180.
Yeah, I mean, it's
So this is
roughly about, we've spent about, I mean, it's hard to tell. I don't know how many pours we've actually had.
This is the 5th year or 6th year?
Can I speak to that?
Please.
The first year we started, we had only done a fourth of what we're doing right now. It's been as money's come available and is working with Chris. We're actually taking on not quite double what we done last year, but that's where you're seeing that increase. It's not that the concrete price actually, per square foot, it's went down this year. We're actually getting a better deal per square foot than we did last year. It's just that we increased the size so we could get it completed this year. And that's why you're seeing those increases. The first years that I done it, I think it was a 60 by 240. Then the next year was about that same thing. The next year we doubled it to a 120 by 240, and we'd done that for a couple of years. And then this year we priced it at 120 by 240, but then we also priced it extending it all the way over, which was not quite double that. And I think it was like 120 by 420 or something like that. And that did give us a little lower square foot price by going to the extra, so that's why you're seeing an
The
increase.
bigger pour? I think it's the same sections? Is it
Same
bigger pour?
thickness, everything's the same. It'll be just exactly what Brian's been doing the last few years, so.
Awesome.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rusty. All righty, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Want to call for a vote? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Okay, the motion passes 6-0. Please vote electronically the same way. All right, now we're moving on to, I think we're back where I thought we were. Local bids policy update.
Yeah, this is just real simply, this is just to kind of,
Hey, Jess, can you change? I accidentally hit abstain instead of aye.
I always do that
Sorry.
every single time.
I was just gonna make sure you had it, so,
Can
sorry.
we like move abstain to the end by chance? Can we do that somehow?
We look for
I don't
A.
think we can change it.
Sorry about
Why is
that.
it First.
Sorry, Ron, I didn't.
no problem. This is just simply, just trying to clean up, I think we had the question about the local bids, and Craig actually came in and asked me, and I didn't really know anything, and then it was actually Bill who kind of made us aware of the statute.
Right.
This verbiage is taken directly from state statute. I've just basically copied and pasted. Feel like it would be to our advantage to have that in our actual board policy, just so when we do have those local vendors, and they are, not greater than 1% above the lowest bid, you guys have the ability as a board to award it to the local vendor. You would have that regardless, even though it's not technically in our
Right.
policy, but it's just there, and I think it'll help future boards, and it won't be questioned. So really, that's all that is. It's just state statute that is there, and we'll just add that. I've kind of shown you in the board packet what that would look like under local bids. So
Hey, Bill,
I feel like it would be helpful.
I just had one quick question on that, Bill. With the way those are written out, 1, 2, and 3 on there, I assume those are basically inclusive of one another, i.e. number 2 has to be met before number 3 would come into effect.
Yes.
Okay, I was just making sure it wasn't something where it would, okay,
Well,
thank you.
yeah.
I appreciate the cleaning up of, our policies, but also just to get the policy to reflect what I think has been our desire. And because having been that new board member perspective, it's nice to have that detailed out. So may I make a motion to accept that new or the rewritten portion of the local bids to this policy?
Sure, please do. Or was that your motion?
So moved, that way.
Okay, we'll go ahead and vote on that. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
The only thing I'd like to just bring attention is that this is not just a commitment of this board, but it's a policy of this district that we are going to have that attention made to the local vendors. And I think that's very important that be noted. So, thank you.
Very good.
Is there I don't know, what's the procedure? Is there usually a first reading and then a second reading, or can you change board policy on the same night? Do you know, Bill?
Motion's been made, seconded. If you want to,
Normally, I think you have a first reading, and then at the next meeting, the policy's approved. But
Oh, my
That's our-
bad.
that's-
as
no, that's
as a
our-
board, you can do it
we
however
can do
you
what we
want
want.
to.
Yeah. That's our-
Have you given this to KSD to have them look it over with their,
It's their verbiage,
We
isn't
we
it?
had legal look it over.
State statute,
It is, it's state statute,
Oh,
so.
it's, okay.
yeah. So they're,
Okay, look it over
they
there.
can't, whether they agree or disagree, they aren't changing.
all right.
Who seconded it?
Craig did.
Craig, I think.
I did.
All right, I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Okay, please vote electronically the same way.
I voted right this time.
Don't abstain. All right, very good. Moving on to the next item, which is the activity bus purchase. And this is discussion.
Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Russ Henningsen, Transportation Director for the school district. Been with the district a little over 8 years, and about 7 years ago, we was needing to make a lot of changes to the transportation department. And one of those changes was we had a lot of vehicles that needed attention, needed upgraded. So the school board at that time had asked me to put together a 5-year transportation plan. We would set aside about $304,000 each year to come out of capital outlay and start rotating in some newer vehicles, try to get in a rotation because where we was at was a bad place and we had to get something going. Since that time, each year I come to the board and we purchase some cars, Suburbans, some school buses. It's been a great thing for transportation. I think it's been a great thing for the district. It's, we're budgeting $304,000 each year, and it's done wonders for our transportation department. Along with that, each year I bring some information along. Jess, you want to go to one that says bus retirement list per year? Each year I kind of bring a snapshot of the buses and cars, Suburbans, and kind of just give you a little bit of information about that. It should say bus retirement year. And with this, it's kind of a snapshot of all the buses we got. If you start on the left side, it says retirement year. Retirement year means we by statute, we can run a school bus for 25 years. That's the maximum we can run a bus. So I just put that up there just so we know we don't go over that year. To be honest, it's very tough to get 25 years out of a school bus with the wear and tear and everything. So, but that's the maximum we can run school buses. So you go across to the right, talks about the chassis, the body, talks about what type of bus it is, capacity, you know, if it's a wheelchair bus or 65 passenger, 84 passenger. And when we're talking capacity of the bus, that's 3 kids per seat. Elementary school, that's possible. We get to middle school, high school, obviously that's not feasible. But we talk about capacity, that's what that means. And the year manufacturing, that's the year the bus was manufactured. Onto the right, that's our bus number we use. And then I give the mileage from last year's mileage to current mileage and how many miles we drove that bus in that particular year. When we're looking at last year mileage, that's August of 2019, and the current mileage is August of 20, so it was the start of our school year this year. So and it tells you how many miles we drove that bus. If you kind of add all up how many miles we drove this last year, with the COVID hit, you know, about this time last year, we hit the COVID, we didn't get to do any spring sports, field trips and that. We drove like 43,000 less miles last year than we even did the year before. So there was a dramatic change just in just a couple months of our spring semester. So a little snapshot kind of our bus, you know, how many miles are, what year they are and everything. So any questions on this particular slide?
No, very good.
Okay, the next slide will be the car and suburban list. Again, this is the same type of sheet, except that we don't have a retirement year, obviously, on these. So that top grouping of, it says Suburbans, that's all the Suburbans basically that we send out of town. Could be for golf, could be for tennis, they take Suburbans instead of taking the bus. Teachers use them for in-service. So a variety of ways that we use the Suburbans. So again, it talks about Suburbans, last year mileage, current mileage, and how many miles were drove. There are 9 passenger on the far right. Those are all about out-of-town Suburbans that we use. The next grouping down below is just some vehicles that we use in town. We don't take these vehicles out of town. We use a couple of them for work stays in town, and we got a couple Suburbans that are out at the high school, and they use those for work study. They take kids to special needs to places to work in town, and they help run some of those around. Helping Hands helps. They drive some of those around. You know, they make food and cookies and stuff, and they deliver. They use the Suburban to deliver those around town. The grouping after that's 3 cars, the Malibu Taurus and Impala. Those are 3 cars that we use to send out of town. So if we don't need to send a Suburban out of town, just one person or 2 people go, we send them in a car for gas mileage. So we have 3 vehicles we use for out of town. And that last grouping is just one. You know, we run mail around to all the schools in town, so we have mail run. Learning Center's got a car to use, and then Hayes High also has a car that they use to go to all the activities. The principals or athletic director uses that. So that's kind of a snapshot of all the vehicles we have as far as cars, Suburbans. And in that, we look at the mileage we drove. We drove almost 46,000 miles less last year, just in a couple months of time. So we did drive, you know, almost 89,000 miles less in buses and Suburbans last year, mainly just because of the COVID at the end of the school year. So as you can tell, we put a lot of miles on buses. We put a lot of miles on cars, Suburbans. So updating our fleet with the 5-year plan is very important. So the next slide says the 5-year plan for transportation. The top parts of cars and Suburbans are breaking down each year approximately what we're looking to purchase. This year, obviously, we don't have anything. But if we go down to the bottom side where it talks about the buses, before you guys came on board, the other board had purchased a activities bus and with contingency funds. So the bus for this fiscal year was bought last year, but it was with this year's funds, if that's kind of following what I'm saying. So it was pre-bought. So we have it here, we've been using it a lot, so that's why this particular fiscal year, we already have an activity bus that we're using. For the 2021-2022 year, that's what I'm here tonight for, is to get another activity bus like the one we bought last year. I'd like to have 2 of the same buses, because most everywhere we go, we're sending out 2 buses. So it's kind of nice to have a couple of the same ones. You know, I have 5 total activity buses we use at all time. I can have anywhere from 1 trip to 5 trips a day out of town. So that seems to cover most everything that we need, or, I don't have no more employees to cover more than that, so. And then the next year, the 22-23, it says another activity bus. That's just a bus. I have about 3 activity buses that are school buses. They're with their red flashing light, they're yellow, they got this stop arm, so we kind of dress them up and use them for activity buses, but we also have them as a backup if we need to run routes with them. So it's kind of a dual purpose for that type of school bus. So we have a few of those we use for activities, but we also use them for routes if we need to also. And then after that, a couple route buses, and then another activity bus. So that kind of just gives you a ballpark of what we're looking at for our 5-year plan for activity buses, cars, and Suburbans. Any question on that particular slide?
I have one.
Yes.
We're seeing activity bus. I'm guessing the difference is the type of bus. Is that the difference between the $66,000 between the 2 buses?
Well, the $260 was what that bus cost last year, and the one I'm looking at purchasing this year, it went up in price, so it's about $266,000.
I was just meaning for next year, the
For-
200,000. That's a different type
The
of bus.
200,000?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's talking about that yellow school bus. I'd
Okay,
probably
so
get
we're
one to
talking
be a school bus, but we dress it up as activity and use it that way. So,
It is.
so like I said, I'm kind of just looking at 2 of the bigger activity buses that are all painted up with Indian pride and stuff, so.
They're the coach liners, and you have,
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what
exactly.
I was wondering. All right.
On your Suburban and car list, does that include all district vehicles, including the Head Start vehicles? Is that in that list?
Head Start is not in that list because they purchase their own vehicles. They do have their own funds and they purchase their own. And then our maintenance pickups is not part of that list that was on there. So Head Start is separate for the simple fact that we still have service them and stuff for them, but they take care of all the bills and they're paying for all their own vehicles.
Thank you.
Very good. So we'll have a couple weeks to think about this and vote on it next time, right?
yeah, and the thing I would echo is last year, we did purchase the bus. It has been, although we got a little slow start in being able to use it, it has been, we've heard so many positives about that. And it will be nice to have a second one, just as, we have lots of kids that travel lots of places. And so having 2 buses like this will be a real benefit.
And the bus that we're talking about, we're kind of okaying to buy it at the next board meeting if you guys do, but it would not show up till after July 1st. It takes several months to get them, so
Right.
we're getting it for next year, but it wouldn't be delivered till next year also. So
Yeah.
we're kind of pre-ordered, but once it's here, then we can get it ready and have it ready by fall sports. So in the past, it kind of came in October because we didn't know where our budgets were and stuff. I order buses and then they come in like April, May, so then my whole year's kind of shot. So this way, we're trying to kind of get it approved. There'll be no funds coming out of this year. It'll be next year's budget for the bus. So, we're not paying no with contingency money or anything like we did on this last one. So, okay.
I really appreciate the 5-year plan, and I think that should be commended for all the different departments that do that. That makes a lot of sense, and I know that as we changed, and you're not, as far as the roles, it's still, I think it really ties in the changing generations that happen to be at boards.
Right.
So thank you for doing that.
I echo Tammy. I remember, like I said, when we talked about that and you came to us and started with what you started with and where it's come to this day is night and day difference, and it's definitely nice. And most years, in fact, a lot of these you come in under budget on a lot of that, just the way you've done
we've
these.
almost always been under budget, and
So
this year we're under budget again.
And it definitely helps from our standpoint to be able to budget the other stuff. So I commend you guys for where you've come on this. So.
And Russ, with the cut down in mileage this year, will that affect your 5-year plan? Because some of your buses aren't getting near the mileage that
Not getting near the mileage. The one thing with activity buses, we do put a lot of miles on them.
Yeah.
When we're talking route buses and stuff, those are the start, stop. So that's hard on a diesel engine, So the wear and tear we get on some of the route buses and the trailer parks we go through, there's potholes and the speed bumps, and that all over a year's time, going through a couple times a day, does put its wear and tear on vehicles. So less miles will be, each year I try to look at, if we can get another year of life, we, definitely can. I'm trying to get to where we get into that 10 to 15 year plan of trying to keep things rotated out so don't get caught where we was 7 or 8 years ago. And right now, we're on a good rotation of that, so. And in some vehicles, you know, they wear out faster than others, so we just kind of see where our expenses are, our repairs are with them, and try to make adjustments along the way with that, so.
So as we look at the proposal for the activity bus, I know last time from sitting on meetings, there's the proposal for the bus, and then there was the proposal for the wrap or the outside. Is that all in one, or is that additional?
There is a wrap on that, it's around $12,000.
So that's built
They'll
into
be
the proposal?
added on top of this price.
Oh,
Yeah,
on
so
top of it.
$12,000 added to that price.
Okay.
Which still puts us under our budget.
Okay.
Good question.
How many kids does that activity bus transport need?
52 passengers.
52, but on an average, how many throughout the year? There's a
Well,
lot of
right
kids that
now,
use it.
with COVID, we're trying to keep kids more spaced out if we can, so we send a few extra buses this year versus other years. We're trying to keep kids, one to see, kind of keep them spaced out. We have assigned seating, so we have contract tracing for that, so. But once sports gets up and going again, you know, we've had less sports, less activities going on, like the band and music wasn't able to travel anywhere this year, debate, forensics, some of those, so instead of having so many trips, we've been able to take lesser trips and kind of spread those kids out to help keep that COVID under control, so.
And I'm just reading down below, you said 52 in the activity bus. Your yellow activity buses are 42?
Yeah, around that, yes. Yep. So we have that one school bus that's dressed up, it's a school bus, but it's dressed up as an activity
The
bus.
white one?
That, yeah, and that's got the same type of seats in it, but it only has 40, we only haul 42 particular kids on that one.
Right.
So it does limit us. 10, you don't think it's a lot, but it is once you're trying to pack middle school soccer or middle school football, you know, or high school. That extra 10 does make a huge difference sometimes, so.
So that white activity bus you're talking about there is still in service?
It's still in service, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
On a normal year, Russ, how many, I mean, it's run almost every day, the activity bus.
Yeah, anywhere, like I say, anywhere 1 to 5 trips. Now we get into, like right now, these last couple of weeks, the only thing we got going on right now is high school basketball, and they've been able to play at home. So right now we have no trips going out. But we get in, we got a schedule on our board, we got 15 some days, we got 4 to 5 trips out every day. So those buses are being used every single day going out on routes. So an issue I got, we always talk about safety. Safety is what we're all about in the transportation department. We got to get the kids to and from school or to and from an activity safe. The cold weather we had a few weeks ago, we was traveling in that cold weather. I lose sleep on it. I get gray hairs from that, Now, anytime I got buses going out, we're going to Liberal and Great Bend and Dodge City, Garden City, Kansas City, Topeka, Wichita. We're traveling all these distances. A lot of that's during school. So a comfortable ride is important for those kids, And these buses have plug-ins for them. They got a USB port so they can do homework if they want to do homework on the bus. And I think that's real important, So safety up, keeping the buses is a huge factor of ours. When the kids go out of town, our buses get back after midnight a lot of times. So basically my day starts at 6 in the morning and ends at midnight a lot of days because I'm watching the weather. We have tornadoes, we have hailstorms, we're driving around them, or we're driving around snowstorms and stuff, always in communication with them. So having, good buses to drive, reliable buses is very important. So. And it does happen, they do break down. We broke down in Garden City before, they gave us a bus, we bring it back, and we take it back the next day and, fill it up with fuel. They've done the same for us, I've done the same for other districts in town, so we work with each other to try to help them out, get the kids home safe, and, we just kind of say, you've just filled up with diesel and you park it and, kind of go. So there's a lot of communication that goes along with all the districts, and that's worked out really great too, so.
That's awesome.
I appreciate all the
Yeah, me too.
updating of the safety issues, because like you said, quite a few years when you just got here, we kind of did, our activity buses were one-way buses almost.
They was breaking down, I couldn't get them out of town, they was breaking down, yeah.
But all levels use this bus. I mean, it
Yeah,
goes
we
for field trips when we have
Anita
them.
said, he talked about field trips, or want to take some local, a lot of times they go out of town, so yeah, it's elementary school, or up to high school, so sporting events, field trips, yeah, everybody uses through the whole district, yes.
Very good.
Thank you, Russ.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your report. Now we'll talk about tractors.
Yeah, I'm next on that too.
Okay. Go ahead.
Rusty was looking for a new tractor for the maintenance department, and he had asked for transportation's help to kind of put together some specifications, try to help get some bids together. Their maintenance department worked with Claude Lemon, our mechanic, because he does a lot of maintenance on all the vehicles for them too. So put together some specifications of what they was looking for, and then we was able to get 3 bids from 3 local vendors. One of them is Lang Diesel, one of them is John Deere, and the other is Radke Implement.
Okay.
All 3 bids are equal in what the vehicle, the tractor does. It's kind of like a Ford, Chevy, Dodge, you know, they look a little different, they got a few different components, but basically they're all going to do the same thing. Radke Implement, which is a Kubota line of tractors, they came at the high bid of $51,300. John Deere was the second bid at $46,627. And then Lang Diesel was the cheapest, and that is a massive Ferguson tractor, and that came in at $44,500. So at this point, you know, we're just wanting to go with the low bid with Lang Diesel, $44,500.
And it looks like that includes the accessories and stuff that he was wanting as well.
It's a cab. It has a cab. It's got a loader, a bucket loader, and it has a blade on the back for moving snow and different things. So yes.
Cool.
And you would add to, obviously, keep the tractor you're currently using, or do you intend to replace it and sell the other one?
Purple wave
Yeah,
What?
it. We purple wave it.
1960.
It's an antique.
Hey,
Yeah, well, you never know. They do last a long time, right?
Russ, I don't know if this is an option, but I've talked to a few people, and I know a lot of the farmers and different things very rarely buy new tractors. There's a lot of used tractors that are in pretty good shape that have been traded off and different things. I don't know with these 3 companies if they run a used line. I know they do. I go through John Deere and different places that we may be able to buy a used tractor at a lower price, no more than we use it. Like if we're using a 1960 tractor now, it looked like maybe we could save quite a bit of money by looking at a used tractor rather than a new tractor. Maybe we can't, but would it be a good option to look at?
I did ask the 3 vendors about the used vehicles, and for that size of market, you know, this is for people in suburban, you know, or small farms where it's a nice little tractor to drive around. There's not really hardly any used out there. Neither, all 3 of them really didn't have anything specific to this, what we was looking for. When you get into used, obviously you can get a good price, or you can get something that was breaking down and, hey, you know, there's passing it on, you know. So then you run into specifications, you know, how would we kind of, you know, bid that out? That'd be hard to do without so many hours or something like that. So, but on stock, what they have, they don't really have much for use for that type of little tractor that they're using. People get them, and a lot of these smaller ones like this, they do keep them for a long time. So they really, there's not a lot of, you know, they're not turning them every few years or something.
I just thought it was a good option because
Right.
a lot of people don't buy new cars. They buy year-old, 2-year, 5-year-old cars and save a lot of money.
And I think
What
maintenance
tractors-
will be using this tractor a lot more than what the one is out there now. You know, they
Yeah,
will,
I think that's.
it's gonna be a multi-use, you know, so what they have now, they don't have a loader on it, does it, or a box blade on it, so this is gonna be used a lot more in the district, more than what the one that they have right now, so there's a lot more use for it, yes.
What other tractors do we have? We still have that backhoe?
Yes,
And does it have a loader on it?
yes.
Okay, so that was bought, that was the last tractor we bought, wasn't it? We haven't got one since
To my
then.
knowledge, that's correct.
And that was bought used, and I think it was around $28,000. I think, Lynch, you were on that, on the board when we bought that.
One thing, Russ, I don't think you mentioned this, so I apologize if you did. This tractor does have turf tires on it, which we kind of like, because it will be running over turf and mowing grass. Most of the tractor tires around here are the red that do leave.
So there's no imprint in the
Yeah,
dirt?
so that's one of the advantages of
Yes.
this tractor.
But you can put turf tires on any tractor, so we could do that on a used tractor. The one thing that I, like Craig, is, you know, I look at a new bus and safety, that's important. And it's used by 50-some kids at a time, and it's used almost every day. And so that's what I'm concerned about, spending this much when we haven't even looked at an option for a used tractor, and that's what we've usually done in the past. You know, $40,000-$50,000.
Well, I'm
Didn't
not
he
sure
just
he
say he looked
said
at used?
I think he said he did look at
Yeah.
options for used.
The three vendors, I went and visited with them directly and asked a bunch of questions, and one of them was, do you have
No.
any used
More, maybe?
that would fit this specification, and they did not, at these three local vendors. But, you know, I can
But-
definitely, you know, things change, I can ask again before the next meeting. Definitely could do that.
Well, it sounds like some board members want you to look at some used options if you can, and come back to us when we're ready to vote. Sure.
I guess, are we asking him though to go out of state and find a used? I mean, we could send him on a goose chase.
No,
I
I
don't
want
know
to
that's gonna be
leave
the
up
best.
to you. Just do a good job of
It's in the region.
looking at a few other areas for used tractors, and that's all I expect. Yeah. All I recommend, I should say. All right.
Thanks,
Very
Russ.
good. Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, teacher iPads K through 8
Are we taking action on the teacher iPads, or is this just a first?
discussion.
Whatever you want to do. If you want to move, well, that'd be awesome.
Okay.
Keep your hands, but if you don't, we will wait.
Okay.
So, this is just, a proposal to purchase 175 teacher iPad K8. As you know, 2 years ago, we purchased 6th through 8th grade iPads, and then last year we purchased K through 5 iPads. Now, during those purchases, the one thing that we did not purchase were teacher iPads, which seems the idea, that it's a good idea, will, you know, save some money, but we have some problems that have arisen and they're just becoming more and more apparent. Operating system difference between the teacher iPads and the newer student iPads. Teachers are not able to run the same apps that the kids are running on their iPads, which causes some frustration for teachers, because they're trying to help kids with problems that they don't have access to on their iPads. These just really basically it's just outdated systems and won't support the newer apps that are available. So we would like to purchase these K iPads. We would like to purchase these out of our ESSER funds, which are made available to us through the COVID fund.
That's what that is.
And will really relieve some stress within the classroom. That's
Okay.
simply what it is. She's not asking for action, however, we might be able to get them in the teacher's hands quicker if we did have action.
Quick question, Ron, on you said with the ESSER funds and the other stuff, I assume we can only use that for certain things anyway,
Yeah,
so.
it has to be related to, you know, there's 15 criteria that it falls under. But I think, I can't remember what we actually looked at with it.
Well, this would, I think under like the student access, one of the things that we're running into with the old one is the screen sharing, especially when you're trying to do Zoom also when kids are remote. Something in the old unsupported system. So it would fall under some of that student access and fix some of the problems we were running into with trying to do some.
So we can take advantage of some of that funding rather than having to use our own funding.
And
Yeah.
is there,
Into a number of those categories.
Yes, that's what I mean. I mean, if we're not having to use our own,
And we really looked at just those teachers that use it as an instructional tool. It's not all certified staff. We really looked through that list, and because we've always said iPads are an instructional tool like a textbook or anything else, and right now, the teacher version is out of date. You know how things are with technology, so it doesn't even support some of the Office products. So it would really be, you know, better for the teaching environment, teaching and learning. And so that's what we're looking at here, and the ESSER funds more than, qualify for that.
and so the ESSER funds, it's not just a category of what those funds can be used for, but I'm assuming there's also a window here, that we're
Right.
not going to have these ESSER funds.
Yeah, we have to spending by the end of 2000. We do have a little white, we're not on any.
It's not like this month, but
We have the first
There's
fund
still-
till 2022, and then ESSER 2 and if ESSER 3 comes till 2023. So we do, and we haven't written out and started spending, we really want to be thoughtful and intentional, but this is really a need, and that's the best use of those funds we feel at this time.
Yeah,
This is the position
A
too,
lot of
where
these back orders
going
right
forward,
now.
we can, when you replace.
Some are, some
the
aren't, just depends on the policy.
devices, you can replace the staff.
Seems like
too, so
there's a
you're
lot of demand.
looking at the same, so you've got the same textbook.
Yeah.
Do you remember how old the other ones are? Just curious. I don't recall.
Whatever version.
5 years.
I say
I think.
5
At least five,
or
or
6.
5 or 6 years.
I was gonna say, I always think 6 is kind of in my mind.
It's a lifetime in
Scott
computers,
said,
right?
Which was more than I thought.
I take it they don't support the iOS 14 or the newer
Yeah.
operating system?
That's the
Okay.
issue we're running into.
Yeah, like the Office apps that, we're running, they just won't support it, so. And as a teacher, it is frustrating because you're trying
Sure.
to run those or your old version and the kids got all the new and they're having problems and you can't really see because you don't have that, so.
And if it's not running iOS 14, it's probably getting, I was dealing with something that doesn't update the security either on a lot of these new ones, or the older ones.
Yeah, I mean,
in
it's
other
so
words,
funny, I
it's a
don't want to
slew
say
of problems.
COVID has been a
Hacking
blessing,
into
but it
Zoom.
has provided us some opportunities to maybe update some things that we would not have been able to. So,
If we made a decision tonight, how soon would these be put into use?
If you approve them tonight,
Uh-huh.
we would place the order and as fast as Apple would get them to us.
Okay, so it would be,
We're at the mercy of Apple. I do think production has ramped back up. Earlier last spring, they were really delayed, but I think production may not be quite, we're still probably, I don't know, a month maybe, but we could have them in people's hands by April, I guess.
Wow. Sooner than I thought.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I move that we approve this bid.
Okay.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the bid as presented. Do we have any more discussion?
I know that Scott does a great job of trying to find the best possible deal. We have an opportunity now with that money that was not coming out of our regular budget. It just seems like a good opportunity to take advantage of this and get them here. Even if it's at the end of the year, the teachers will be able to get started and be ahead for the next year.
Okay, any more
Yeah.
discussion?
Just the only thing I'm thinking of, this is a different sized iPad, a 10.2, so we'll need to look at cases with them
Yeah,
also.
cases, we don't, cases are always, we're at the mercy of just finding the best case. Of course, these are teacher iPads, we're not nearly as concerned
Right.
about the quality and durability of the case, so that the expense will be quite a bit less than a student case. We just really don't know what case, but it really will be a pretty minimal cost.
Okay.
Are we planning on selling the old ones and getting some of that recouped?
We'll get whatever we can get out of it, for sure.
All right, motion on the floor, seconded. We had discussion, any more? Okay, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Accidentally? All right, motion passes 6-0. Please vote electronically the same way. Very good, I like it, I like it. All right, so next is new staffing requests. You don't like your old staff? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, for sure. No, I like old staff.
I know.
This is just the next phase of trying to build better programs, better opportunities for our students inside our district. Last year we made some definite improvements in what we were able to do with our levels of instruction and support by adding staff inside our district buildings. Last year we just looked where we have been.
is that what is on this spreadsheet that you have
Yes.
crossed out.
Yes.
Those were actually
So those were
implemented.
last year,
Okay.
that's what was added last year. We had a middle school staff, we had a half-time woods teacher, we had 3 kindergarten teachers, a Iowa reading teacher, a mental health liaison, a school nurse. These were all, and that was a big ask, it really was. We had a lot of staff last year, but I think you will find overwhelming just praise of the board for approving that, because middle school, with kindergarten teachers, Iowa reading, and the mental health liaison, the school, extra school nurse, just really have all been paid off very beneficial for this year. These are requests that we have put together to, once again, just try to continue to build a stronger district in terms of what we can offer. Hayes High School, of course, is seeing some of our large classes move into, and so you're seeing their ELA classes really packed. And of course, ELA is a time-intensive class for teachers as kids are asked to write and feedback needs to be provided for really good instruction. This will help keep the class average down to adding an ELA teacher. We've also at Hayes High, we've been working with Mr. Straub and his staff and looking at a student support credit retrieval class. This would be utilizing most likely Edgenuity, which is our district, what we use currently in the district, to support students who just need that one class, maybe they have failed, they need, and so they would, put that into the schedule to maybe get some classes made back up. And we feel like this is a very unique opportunity for kids to, prevent dropouts or prevent them leaving the school because they feel like they're in a hole that they can't catch up. And we feel like we would be able to do this. We do have some of these in red, if you'll notice. The reason we put them in red is we feel like they fall within the criteria for the ESSER funds. As far as maybe some students who have failed because of COVID, this would allow them to catch back up. So we would be able to use ESSER funds for this. We're also looking to support Hayes Middle School. Right now they have approximately 750 students at Hayes Middle. Right now we have Mr. Albers and Mrs. Weifel are the only 2 lone full-time administrators. Mr. Rupp does serve as an athletic director, but he is also a full-time teacher. With some of the initiatives that we have planned, and as you understand, this all really kind of falls into our MTSS and what our district initiative that we're moving towards for, hopefully implementation next year. And it's just going to require some more administrative support. I feel like when I look at the middle school, it is somewhat administratively understaffed in terms of what they, have going on. In terms of number of kids, with also some special education requirements for the middle school in terms of, all the students who are there. Just, it's pretty time intensive for our administrators. And so what we would be asking is to, add some administrative support and give them the opportunity to support other activities, that inside the school. We also have a music teacher, an elementary music teacher, and an elementary PE teacher. Once again, these all go back to our MTSS initiative. One of the things that we have here at Hayes is we do a very good job of being very efficient, but it doesn't always allow for a lot of flexibility. We're pretty tied to when a teacher is in the building versus when they're not. It really kind of ties the principles in terms of what we can do with some of the MTSS scheduling. And we're really trying to create large blocks of time, hopefully school-wide. We feel like this is the best scenario that offers that support for our elementary building administrators to really be able to design a schedule that will allow for some really great blocks of time that could be dedicated for MTSS, a walk to intervention model. And so we would like to see these positions added as well. Also, you'll see in red some district requests, an MTSS coach. This is just someone who is going to help support our MTSS implementation and, following subsequent years as well. They're basically going to be working with the data and pulling data as that data, and working with collaborative teams to help make decisions about instruction. This is really taking our school district to the next level. This is, I think when we talk about being a champion for all kids, this is the step we have to take, is we have to have a program that really lines up and can really help all kids. And this is one of the things we feel like is very important, especially as we're coming off of COVID. We've had a lot of kids who have gaps, and this is really going to identify those gaps and things that we can do quickly to address those gaps. The last one that we're requesting is what we're calling a family and community communications outreach position. This person is just going to help with us getting out some effective and positive communication, in addition to help just some other activities within our district. We feel like, coming off of COVID, it's going to be very important that we have a person like this who can help us with some of the activities that we need to do to reach out to families and provide positive communication. So, in a nutshell, that's a lot of staff in a short amount of time. I'll be glad to answer more, direct questions, but I think the thing is we have met a lot of time here at Central Admin. We've visited with building admin specifically about this. This is building a better district, and this is something I would really like to see. I don't know, I come from a farming background, so maybe I use an analogy of farming because I think you can understand. We are in a time where we have seen some new revenue based upon the Gannon lawsuit that was filed 5 years ago. We're on the third of 5 years, and we will continue to see some revenue increases for the next 2 years. Also, that's in a sense kind of like, when you get some good crops and the rain is coming and we know that we're not running tight. We've also had COVID, and I think you can think of that in terms of maybe some subsidization that is occurring because of some catastrophes, and so we're also able to do some things with being subsidized with some of the funds. So, I think from that standpoint, times are good, and if we want, coming from the farming background, those are the times you expanded your operation. That's the time you bought a new piece of equipment, is when these kinds of opportunities persisted. When times are tight, you laid low, and you kind of, waited for the good times to come through. So the good times are here, and I think we do need to move as a district, and I feel confident that we have the funding available. This doesn't put us at risk. It also strengthens our district immensely, and we'd like to see this take place.
I have some questions.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
So, I wish I knew these answers, and I apologize, and this could be a question for Lance as well as you, Ron, but in some of these positions that you have recommended for the 2021 that we've already done, and then the 21-22, are they replacing some that had been removed years ago? So it's not necessarily that we're building, but we're trying to get back to and match what we used to have?
I think in some regard, yes. I assume at some point there were some more staff members at some point that have, through attrition and declining enrollment.
And those were decisions that were made at that time that I'm not being critical of, but I think that's also a different reflection of, kind of back to your analogy of farming. When we couldn't afford it, we had to remove it, but now we can, then it's good to invest in ourselves. The next questions, though, then I have, in terms of those that are in red, that you said the ESSER funds would be able to provide support, I'm assuming that once those funds are gone, then that would be a funding mechanism we'd have to look at, with the exception that it looks to me that if you've got a position such as a family and community communications outreach writing grants, you may be able to have that person almost be able to
Yeah,
bring in
that-
enough money to
That would be the
offset.
thought on that position of, helping us try to figure out how we can sustain some of the programs that maybe we're seeing success with. And we do have these funds for 2 years, so we would be able to fund these for the next 2 following years. And there is a chance we might even see some ESSER 3 funds coming up, so we could even
True.
have some 3-year funding, I'm not sure exactly. So, yes, exactly, we will have to make some decisions in 2 to 3 years on those positions if they are approved.
Right, I think our thought is, we always have people leave, we have good people, MTSS, it'll be a 2-year process, and then we should have the process down, so, yeah, we aren't saying they're automatically then gonna be able to be funded at that point, but we also know we'll look at them every year and see where we're
Sure.
at. But through attrition, I think we know that we'll hire good people and could absorb them.
When would you start recruiting for these positions if approved? I mean, what's the
Well,
time frame of when you
We're
get
in the
these?
hiring season right now. So that's the thing is we just, once and basically I just need, authorization from the board in terms of, I think you're not approving the actual employment of anyone, it's just the authorization that we have the ability to work. And I'm not necessarily asking for, that authorization this evening. I do think we need to have some good discussion, and hopefully you will ask the questions that you feel are important. I would hope that you would support these positions, because as an administrative team, we spend an extensive amount of time thinking and analyzing everything, and nothing up here has not been put up here without a line. We do have more requests, than we felt like we could do, and so we only put what we felt like were high priority. And so those are the ones that we brought to you this evening.
So since these are new positions, and I don't mean to dominate, I'm sorry, but one last question. Since these are new positions, then I would assume that there would be a range, that you would have the high range of total dollars needed that we
Sure.
would be approving? How does
How
does that
on an
work?
average, for a teaching position, we estimate $60,000.
You say 5 or 6?
60,000. That is based on, and that's just a very rough number. That gives us kind of an estimate. We probably always estimate high, and so any kind of projections that we look at, we're on the high side, so we always come in under projections when we hire staff. But there is always a possibility.
That includes
Benefits,
benefits
yes.
too, right?
That's what I was just going to ask.
Yes, that includes benefits.
Total package.
That's, when we look at a teacher, we look at not only salary, but what the benefits is the cost of the district.
One, the top one is student support. That could be funded through the ESSER
Yeah, the
funding.
ones in red are
Yeah, I'm just- so
they qualify.
Roughly 2 years,
I would
maybe
believe.
by 2 years, we won't need that position because they'll be caught
Possibly.
up. But
also, you have to remember, in 2 years, we will still be receiving revenue increases based upon the Gannett lawsuit. So that's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
We're not in any jeopardy of getting hard times.
I don't know about the PE teacher, but I think the music teacher would be a replacement, or what's the word I'm looking for? We lost one.
This would be an addition. We did have a
I mean,
requirement.
a few years ago, we
These
lost
were-
one. Is what I'm getting at.
Oh, okay.
These are kind of added on. The music and the PE were cut a few years back.
Yeah.
So that's kind of just added back.
Getting back to where we were.
One area, I'm sure you probably talked about it, is our library specialist. That area has been hit real hard, and that's something as elementary,
Yeah, if you scroll down, they are on the future requests.
they are, if you're teaching reading in elementary, you need a great library specialist, and I think a lot of those positions now are held by paraprofessionals that really should be a teacher in that position. So that would be something I think we need to have highly qualified personnel in that
Yeah,
position.
we've had discussions about it, and we have it on the list, we just didn't feel like it met the priority list at this point.
So
And that
the
would be a
future,
replacement.
future request would be 22, 23, or just?
Possibly, I mean, we just,
How things are going.
Yeah.
I don't make any
Well,
promises.
okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
The credit retrieval recovery
Yeah.
specialist at Hayes High, would that duplicate what the Learning Center is doing now, but give, like, who's ever at the high school building the program, give them more flexibility to do it by semester rather than just only during the summer?
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, it's not really a duplication of, it's a different process. The Learning Center is, I would say, an alternative to getting your high school diploma, where where those kids, work either virtually or they go to a very secure, there's not the typical high school activities going on.
For the normal, but
Yeah.
we've run a recovery system in the summertime for a lot of math and English
Yes,
over
we
the
do that.
last
Trying
few
to start
summers.
and keeping kids on track, and you're right, if it's housed in the high school, then
Right.
you don't have to wait till the end of the
Right.
semester if the student misses a lot and gets behind. This teacher can customize the class, they can be doing that in addition and stay on track. So it's really more like a post-secondary success, on track to graduate. We could have named a million things,
Yeah.
but it's really about helping the kids within that school, dropout prevention.
Because
helping
the
them.
summer enrollment at the Learning Center a few years ago really jumps when all those math and ELA kids come back for recovery, it seems like.
Yeah. And this would definitely help that.
So if we're, I mean, just doing a quick math, we're looking at $420,000 in addition to our budget.
Well.
If you're at
If
6,
if you're talking total staff members, possibly, but it's not all coming out of the general fund.
correct.
Yeah,
So-
we have the ability, like I said, from the farming analogy, you
Yeah.
got some subsidies coming that you'll be able to use, and plus from your cash flow, you'll be able to use some. So that's why I'm saying, I don't want to say COVID has been a good thing, because it hasn't been, but it is presenting us some opportunities to really build back some things and build towards stronger, some district programs.
So if we look at this for 2 weeks till the second meeting in March, that will give time to,
Sure, I mean, yeah, I mean, then we'll just start offering advertising. positions in
advertising
2 weeks.
vacancies?
Yeah,
So you have job descriptions and everything ready to go if you, and
sure.
I mean, I have to share, I know both Craig and I had mentioned this when we were in our election forum candidate. We were both very much in favor of a public relations type professional for our district, especially one this size that looks at certainly having a bond possibility, but then when you think about, we have a foundation, the the USD 489 Foundation, that I think, having served on that, I know we've got people in the audience that still serve, but at that point, there really isn't anybody just devoted to helping drive money into that foundation. And so to me, I feel like that's just, I like all that you're looking into. I like the different approaches that you're trying to do to subsidize, but I also like your attention to trying to really enhance just the traditional learning environment as well, because I know that was something that, having spoken to you about that position idea, you were very attentive to what you've been hearing from the other faculty and staff.
I'd agree. If we had that position right now, and we could be getting the information out on House Bill 2119 of how it affects the public schools, it would make a big difference that people knew that it would be a negative effect on public schools clear across Kansas.
And that position is a replacement too. We used to have one. So.
That's been several decades, I know. I think I was just newly married at the time when that one
Not
was.
too many decades. Yeah.
No, I'm thinking 20, 24.
Maybe 20.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Okay, so I think we're seeing that we'll come back in 2 weeks and.
Do we need other
vote on this,
information
but
from them?
That's my point, is that right now we have time to discuss this, and we will have discussion next time. But if you have any more questions or comments, bring them up now, so we have a full
Or
discussion.
between now and,
Or in the next couple of weeks, I bet Shanna or Ron would have time for individuals to come in and talk to them.
Yep.
The only thing I would ask is if you have any consensus on approving this. I mean, I think it would be to our benefit, to being able to move on some of these positions.
I'll give you my opinion. I think if we decide that we can afford these positions, why would I not?
We can afford it.
I get it, that's my point.
Well,
So
Chris
what-
made a good point, go ahead, I think.
Well, I
No
mean, if
reason not to.
there's still time, if you still want time to mull it over, we could at least post them right now as anticipated positions, knowing that
Right.
there's general support, there's nobody saying, by golly, no. If it's a matter of, sounds reasonable, let's think it through, if you have other questions, and we could go ahead even and post them as anticipated now and start down that
Yeah.
road.
Because really.
wouldn't see any problem with
that.
everything
That's
until
fine.
March 29th, and we could lose some top candidates in some of
Okay.
those positions, which makes a little.
Well, it
difference.
looks like some, I agree with what you're saying, and if we want to do, it looks like some will be starting in the fall, I would assume, but then some others can almost start
They all-
tomorrow.
They would all start.
Yeah, I think
it's just the
Okay.
hiring.
Well-
fiscal year is just losing them to other districts, or if they.
It's a competitive advantage right now, the
Yes.
earlier we can get to try to get
Right.
quality
Yeah,
candidates.
we're in the hiring season.
Yes.
Going back to the farming analogy, it's harvest time.
No, it's March, isn't it? Yeah, okay.
I like
I don't
Chris's
know what
idea
else
of the anticipated openings.
Even if you looked at like the category one, say, okay, yeah, we know high school ELA and the ESSER ones. Post those and go, we'll think about the others, or any version of something like that might be helpful too.
Oh,
And you, when I read through this, I haven't had a lot of time to read through it, but you kind of prioritized one, HHS ELA was the top
Those
priority.
were within the Hayes High School priority. I asked the principals to do.
Right.
okay.
What is our number of librarians now?
Three.
We don't have one for every school,
No.
but three.
We have 2.5.
Or 2.2.
We have .5 at every elementary school, and then,
So that's been drastically cut, about at least 3 positions from what it used to be.
yeah. And it's really like with anything, we've looked at, how does that make it work on paper? How do we, how does it really help us with what we're looking at MTSS? And so really having the music and the PE special flexibility helps right now versus maybe that, and that we also have library services all day for that shared space, and so it's still a little, haven't worked out all of that to know that that's really the priority as high as some of the other specials at this time.
May I make a motion, actually, President? I would like to make the motion that we consider these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 positions, both at buildings and districts, to be considered as the recommendations that we have with the budgetary support that they have identified. And I would like to make the motion that we, I haven't done this on new staff, I guess, fill these positions.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, let's,
The vacancies.
one second real quick. I think you're looking for a head nod or something, say, hey, yes, this is a good idea, go
You're not
for it.
really approving.
Yeah, I mean,
Because
it's,
as
Do that.
Yeah.
Lance pointed out, we'll actually approve them
Just
when
kinda
we,
give me
Yeah, right now, it's just basically saying-
we're approving the
go out and
contract.
find them.
Okay, so we don't have to approve the actual position, that's what I was wondering.
You will
Then I
eventually. You
No,
will.
but I mean, we don't have to approve that you're actually opening it up. So then
Just-
I
I'm just-
rescind that motion, I'm sorry,
I'm just
that's a
making you
newbie.
aware and asking for
Okay.
kind of a consensus authorization to move on these positions.
Okay,
I see no issue.
I
then I rescinded
like your
that
plan.
motion, by the
I
way.
think everybody else can give their own opinions, but I think it's a good idea to post these and get moving on them.
Okay.
Anybody else want to add in while we have?
I agree.
Okay,
Thanks, guys.
You bet.
We're moving in the right direction. Thanks so much.
bet. Okay, now we're at board discussion. Two items. I think I have an item and we had something that Alan wanted to speak to. Mine's real quick, so let me start there. It's that time of the year again for our superintendent evaluation. I can't believe, Ron, this is our fourth semester. Seems like it's been 5 years.
Yeah.
In a good way, not in a bad way, in a good way. I can't believe it's only been 4. So we'll, board, I need to get some feedback. Should we follow the same approach I used last time with my survey, that I'll email you, you'll fill it out, get it back to me, I'll crunch the numbers, write a report?
So you'll email us?
Yes.
And try to
Okay.
get it back.
Just
before
don't
the
email
next
our,
meeting.
Oh, what?
email our alternate email addresses.
Okay.
I don't think we have our USD ones fixed, because I still can't get mine.
Oh, I think some are, some
Mine's
aren't.
working now.
Yours is
I couldn't
working.
get mine earlier yesterday. Let me just try.
We'll work on
Mike, when is the 60th day?
I don't know. It's coming up, it's gotta be coming up, right?
Or March,
I'm still
probably.
getting
Yeah.
that.
No, it's not till April.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what we use.
School days is 60, so sometime in April, but I'm always doing this last minute, so let's not do that. I want to do it sooner than usual.
I'd say use the same process you've been.
Okay.
That worked.
Okay,
Probably just an old.
so just so everybody knows, I will email you the survey and you complete it.
Yeah.
And then email it back to me. I'll write the report. We'll discuss it, discuss things with Ron. That's the process, not too complicated.
Okay. still
Okay,
good.
that's all I had for that. Thank you very much. I'll move on that one. Alan, did you have something about policies? I can't
Now,
remember.
policy, I think that I would just, there was some discussion about board policy and about
Oh,
what,
shoot, that's not the right.
how they're viewed, and I just want to know what the board is. The board policy is the law of the district, and so I just think that we need to have more discussion. I want to make sure that we do it in the appropriate way, that it's not, if we have something that's concerned a particular individual, to protect them, and if it's personnel items, then that needs to probably be in executive session, but we haven't had very many executive sessions in this last year, probably fewer than most boards. So it's not that, but there's a balance there, because policy is supposed to be discussed in open meeting.
Right.
And any changes and any voting on that has to be done in an open meeting. But if it's particular for a certain individual or a certain concern, then that, I believe, Bill, would be in.
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused. I agree with what you're saying, but on one hand, you're saying we haven't had enough executive sessions, and on the other hand, you're saying that we need to make sure we have more public discussions. So, like tonight, I really did try to have more of a public discussion on these personnel hirings.
No, I'm not critical. I'm just saying that I want to make sure we do that right, and be
Well, I'm not, okay.
concerned about that we're doing something behind people's back. It's not. It's, if it has to be.
Well, that's why I was a little frustrated last time when you mentioned that we should discuss the parking lot again and vote on it separately, which is totally fine. We can do that, but you really did imply that we were doing a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff, and I really frustrated with that because we discussed it last meeting. It's an ongoing project, and it's also in our agenda. So it's not like anything's being kept from anybody. Now, I'll agree that we can have, of course, it's appropriate if you want to request to pull something out of the consent agenda, that's totally fine. But I just don't like the suggestion that we're doing things behind the scenes. I tried to be very open. I discuss things that when we go in executive session and when we come back, and I think people know what we're talking about when we go to executive session. We actually are very careful not to discuss more than the issue that we're supposed to discuss. So we have to come out sometimes, go back in for another issue, like we're supposed to do, so. But I agree with your overall position that we should follow policy, but Again, I'm a little confused if are we having not enough executive sessions, or are we having too many?
I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying
you
is
did.
that I want to do it correctly, and maybe, like I requested a meeting with you, maybe I need to go through some of these policy issues with you first.
Well, that's a good point. I don't know if we do. I think if you want to make it public, bring them up in public. If you're saying we're secretive, and then you say, hey, I want to meet with you one-on-one, I don't know what to do with
I
that.
don't think I said that.
Well, you just said it. You just said you did want to meet with me personally, but privately. If you have
I wanna
policy
know
issues you want to
What you
discuss,
suggest and what you've done in the past when it comes to board policy.
say that again?
There was a little bit of confusion last time we were talking about board policy, that it's a suggestive type of thing, but board policy is the law of the district. And unless we follow it by the letter of the law, or what we say, or we change it, which we can, unless it's a state law or state statute. And is that correct, Bill?
Generally speaking, yes.
That's true.
The thing I
I get-
clarify, Bill, I don't think it's necessarily the law.
It's not a law.
It's
Well,
Policy. Yeah.
It's-
guidelines for following.
It's your guidelines that the board has established,
Yeah.
which you can get out of them anytime you want to, too, so.
When I talked to KSB, that's the term that they use. It said, well,
Yeah.
board policy is supreme, it's the law of the district.
Yeah, I've heard that
Okay.
before, too.
What do you, I'm not sure what you want me to do. Do you,
Well, I'm just asking if I have concerns about certain policies, what would be the appropriate way that you would want me to bring it up?
in a meeting?
And just my view on that would be like future agenda item requests.
Yeah.
If you have a certain policy you would like the board to discuss, bring it up as a future discussion, not the whole policy book. But if you have a specific policy, I would say request at that time for Mike and from Ron that we want to look at this policy, discuss it, and go by the board that direction.
That sounds reasonable.
Or I could just add a policy discussion under board discussion, and we can have an open discussion about these issues, so nobody thinks I'm trying to keep it behind the scenes.
Well, really.
As long as we don't take too much time, we got to be careful we don't go into
I
a
was gonna say-
45-minute discussion about policy, but
So
we
it
have
could be an
specific
agenda,
policies.
instead of a discussion, could be an agenda item?
Well, why don't we just play it by ear and say next time during board discussion, we'll have a discussion about policy, and then see how it goes. If it works fine, then keep going. If it
Do you
doesn't,
want a specific, like Craig said, a specific policy that we want to look at, so everybody's prepared to look at it and see
Because
it?
you can take days and months going through the whole policy review. We've done that.
Mhm.
But I think just as a suggestion, I think it does also state that really, the board member has, he's to communicate with the board president and the superintendent. And so that would be me included in terms of talking about policy. And then we can put it on the agenda if we feel like that's important.
Yes, that's a good idea, but I think it'd be helpful if you have specific policies that you have questions about, bring those up instead of just a general idea that we're not following policy or violating
Is
the law.
this the time to do it, or when's the best time to do it?
Well, why don't you, do you want to tell us what they are now, and we can,
I have one that we can start with.
okay, go ahead.
It's code GACCA.
Okay?
So you can look that up. And
No, just tell me what it is.
It's on nepotism.
Okay?
Okay. You can touch next board meeting.
Okay, we'll talk about that next time.
GACCA?
GACCA.
We'll have Bill, if you don't mind, Bill, if you look it up, and you might need to weigh in on some things.
And then, just if there's any current situations that fall under that situation, we should be aware of it.
And I,
Okay. Okay, well, what are you asking for? Do you want someone to do research on
No.
whether nepotism
Just
is
discuss it.
occurring? Or,
Well, just according to the policy, what it says.
Is there a concern
But I'm not-
related to this policy, though? That we're going to be identifying that,
you must have an idea in mind of what you're talking about, right? So,
Or are we just wordsmithing a policy? I guess I'm confused.
But we got to be careful, because if we start talking about individual people, then we need to not do that in public, right? And we do it in public, I would imagine, right? And then but if you have,
I want to be respectful and do it the appropriate way.
yeah, I understand, of course, but is that too broad? Look at nepotism. We need to be more specific about,
It's a short policy, it's not very long.
no, I meant, okay, we'll talk about the policy.
And I appreciate Mike talking about executive session and that he's very careful about what we go into, because it spelled out exactly what we can go on, because I had several people talk to me and there was an inference about secret meeting after the last meeting, and the county, the city, the school board all goes into executive sessions, and they follow the policy just like we do. So I really dislike that inference.
Okay. Okay, so we'll ask the administration to look at the policy about nepotism and then come back and we'll discuss it in 2 weeks. Okay?
Sounds good.
Okay, now we have an executive session we need to go into. Speaking of that.
Yeah.
So, let me read my long spiel here. Don't interrupt me, please. I know that normally halfway through, people are like already leaving. I move to enter into executive session pursuant to the Kansas Open Meeting Act for matters relating to employer-employee negotiations, whether or not in consultation with the representative or representatives of the body or agency, in order to protect the district's right to confidentiality of the negotiated position and in the public interest. Okay, the open meeting will resume in this board meeting in this boardroom at 9 o'clock. Do we need 15 minutes?
We're probably gonna, I know you're.
A little more? That's okay.
Yeah, we're probably, I'm
We're
gonna
gonna
say
discuss the
30.
budget.
I know, you can't believe I'm saying that, I'm sorry.
We'll
It's
do
not my-
9.
But we're gonna be expediting.
And give us a
We're
few
gonna
minutes
move.
before we start.
Yeah.
Yeah, you,
Why don't we say 9:15? That'll give people a chance to, is that okay?
Right, that gives us 3 minutes to run before.
In addition to the board, the superintendent, both assistant superintendents, the board attorney are invited to the executive session. Okay.
Oh, do we have to vote?
Oh, I got him. Do I have a second for my motion?
Second.
Do we have any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Okay, motion passes 6-0.
Oh, I think she's, Chris, I don't need it.